Welcome back to another episode of That Video Game Podcast. I'm your host, Boston. Joining me as always is Moonpeer. And the Nymph.
I am happy to be here.
I'm happy to be invited. This is our first of two end-year podcasts. We are currently on vacation as you're listening to this. Thank goodness. Praise some deity. It's well-earned, especially this year. Yay, content. So, as we always do this year, we're going to do our top 10 extravaganza here this week, kind of wrap up the entirety of 2021. Then next year, we're going to finish up wrapping up this year and kind of look forward to next year with our predictions episode, where we kind of look at all the stuff that happened, our hilariously incorrect predictions for 2021, and then make some more for 2022. So that'll be up next week. Yeah,
just a minor correction. He actually meant next week at the start of that big sentence, not next year.
Yeah, what is time really in 2019?
Maybe don't
the
hurt
year
me.
we are in. Yeah,
Don't hurt me no more.
DMCA. All right, let's get into. If you haven't listened to this top 10 list before, let's get into all of our rules here real quick. Most importantly, we have not seen each other's lists. Moon is doing emojis in Skype and killing me. Hope you enjoy the video version. We haven't seen each other's lists. This is a surprise. We've talked about, oh my god, we need to do our list. It's happening any day now. The normal stuff. But we haven't actually seen my number 7 is this. While everybody's talking about their individual games, usually we let people have their moment. They get to have the floor. Sort of in our normal episodes, we like to have a lively conversation about what foodstuffs we're eating. But in this one, usually we let people kind of have their moment about the specific game. Like we've talked about before, no real rules on what people have in their list. These really are everybody's individual lists. You want to put 10 remasters and remakes on there? Knock it out. You want to put 10 brand new games? Cool. You want to put 10 indie roguelikes? I'm glad you found 10 this year. Send us the list. We add them to the We Roguelike It list. It's really up to whatever the person wants. There's no firm rules about, if it's a remaster of a game that came 2 or less years, doesn't matter. We try not to spoil things here. If we do as part of our list, we will give a fair warning. I will do my best to appropriately chapter each person's numbers here in this list for podcast chapters. So if you're really worried about any sort of spoilers or anything, just sort of skip forward a little bit.
Yeah. And sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you just cannot help but spoil stuff.
Yeah, sometimes talking about why the game means a lot to you or why it is so high or low on your list requires you to say, I really like this game, except for big spoiler. We'll mention that beforehand. This list does include games that came out in December 2020, since we do record these episodes early. So, some games might not have come out during this year. Don't get weird about it. Don't write me. Hit me up in Discord. And I will say this every year until the heat death of the universe. This is not a comprehensive list of what are the best games this year. These are just the games we loved the most. So,
or if you want to think about it as games that we suggest you check out when you have free time.
Exactly. Like our highest recommendations in a numbered list are, it's not, my number 1 game is the best game that got released this year. It's not that list.
My number 1 game is the best game that got released this year.
My number 1 game.
The funny thing is, I know we probably all have different number 1s, is what I'm thinking for this year.
Probably, yeah.
100%. And as we always do, we're going to go around the horn with everybody's list. We'll start with Moon, then Nymph, then myself. So, let's do a real quick overview of the sections we're going to go. I'm going to start with the surprise section category that I have not told my co-hosts about, that we're going to keep doing here in the future. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Then we're going to go on to Best Old Game. This is the game that came out at some point in video game history that you played in 2021 that you really liked. Did it come out in 1983? Did it come out in 2020? Who knows? 2021's Alpha Protocol, I think we've sort of referred to this as kind of a diamond in the rough, our favorite B game of the year. We're all a fan of the B game here. And what one did we like this year that kind of Alpha Protocol'd it up in the best way this year? We're going to talk about a couple of honorable mentions, usually a fairly short list here. We're going to talk about the TVGP community voted game of the year. What did all you out there in podcast listener land choose as your community best game this year? We're going to hit our top 10 from 10 to 1, and then we're going to talk about a couple of games we missed. Usually a fairly short segment, because if you listen to other people's top 10s, they'll say, hey, my number 7 was this game, and the other two people go, right. That write that down for your own list of games you missed. So let's start with our surprise category. Moon, why don't we talk about our year in gaming real quick? How did you feel about your overall gaming landscape of this year? How do you feel about hitting all the stuff you wanted to play? How did video games treat you this year outside of, let's ignore the hellscape that is 2021 and try and focus on how did the positive scape of gaming do?
So that's where I'm going to stumble on this issue.
Only here for the negatives, huh?
That's right.
100%. Gaming treated me fine this year. I spent a lot less money this year for numerous reasons than I normally do. One of those reasons is Game Pass. Let's be honest here.
Yep.
If you have an Xbox or a PC and you don't have Game Pass, you should probably get Game Pass, is all I'm saying.
MVP of 2021, Game Pass.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
A lot of personal things changed for me this year, we'll say.
Yep.
Which resulted in a lot of difficulties in when it comes to video games, of just wanting to play video games, wanting to do anything kind of thing.
Right.
So while games treated me right, I didn't return the favor. I ghosted video games for a while there, and just like, I like you, just not in that way, kind of thing. If we were on a dating app, I'd kind of swipe left and then undo that swipe, and then swipe right and then undo that swipe, and I wouldn't be able to know what I was doing with video games the whole year.
Right.
But I felt it treated me okay. I think my biggest issue with video games this year is I don't have all the platforms.
Yeah.
So wait till you see my games I've missed list, because that's pretty big, because a lot came out on a lot that I don't have.
Oh, you mean these impossible to find $500 consoles? You haven't scooped up all of them?
Yeah. Please, that would involve having $500 to buy it first.
Exactly. Nim,
all we need is a Patreon feed over $250. So eventually we can squirrel some money nuts away for upgrading PCs.
I can write them off as I can write them off on the company's taxes or something. Yeah. Nimp, how was your year in gaming?
Well, considering that I am one of those people that had to jingle the keys in one direction for my spouse, that way she was unaware of the amount of money I was spending on console. I didn't buy from scalpers, but anyway.
Yeah.
The gaming year was actually pretty good. There are a lot of things that I was kind of looking at that I played that surprisingly hooked me. There were a couple things that I was kind of looking forward to that when they came out, I was like, yeah. But
yeah, it's fine.
But less of the lows and more of the highs. Yeah, and the fact that I was able to, the PS5 was the last one that I needed, and the fact that I was able to finally hunt one of those down and get it. But there's 3 games for the system, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but it wasn't a huge rush, yeah.
Yeah, all in all, though, I feel it was a pretty decent year.
Yeah.
Especially for JRPGs.
Shockingly.
Oh,
yeah.
Dude. Yeah. She was so insane. It felt like you guys had every whim catered to, and I was just sitting over here being like, what about me?
For the first time since the PS1, yeah.
Exactly. It's like we got a bunch of got a bunch of games that came out And then a bunch of companies were like, oh, hey, this long-running series that you like that never came out to the West, that's coming out now. Oh, hey, this series just concluded. Now we are translating the new series for that will be coming to the West. I'm like, oh, man, this is so much to look forward to.
Yeah, the main reason I wanted to ask this question is I feel like every year for like the past 14 years, I feel like every time we talk about our top 10 list, we always kind of dance around the conversation of like, boy, it was a great year for video games. Oh, I really wish I didn't. So I figured we'd talk about it. Largely because I feel like when I was making my list here, I kind of put all my games together in a list, and I had like 17 games in my top 10. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I can cut any of these. Like 2021 was such a good game for games. Your AAA, your roguelikes, your JRPGs, your indies, like everything across the board was so good. Like I feel like there've been very few years where it's just like, yeah, I played like 30 games and all of them were incredible. You know, you usually don't get such a windfall.
And I think, like I was saying, there was like a ton of indie games that came out that I knew nothing about, had no interest in, and then gave a couple of them a shot. I'm like, wow, this is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like. I probably didn't play as much as I could this year. Well, I definitely didn't play as much as I normally do. But looking at my top 10, it probably the widest range I've had in a long time.
Ditto. Yeah. All right. Well, let's start here with our best old game. Moon, what do you have?
I got 3 because I couldn't make my mind up.
I see our last segment we were just talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, number 1, which I'm not going to talk about in detail, is okay. So we're going to move on from that game.
It rhymes with Destiny too.
Yes. Mostly because this is the year I started playing it more seriously. This is the year where I started playing it with you and the community members. And the one downside I have with Destiny 2 right now is, unfortunately, if it's not on specified nights, I end up playing it by myself a lot, which is still my biggest drawback, which is why I would like certain members of the community to pick it back up again. So I can play whenever I want to play, rather than specifically... Because I still haven't done the 2 dungeons for this week because I don't have anyone to play it with outside of 2 specific days, kind of thing. Which was my biggest issue with Destiny previously, and ongoing it may end up being too. But at the same time, it was very good comfort food gaming when I needed it to be. And also mechanically, Bungie makes hella great shooters.
Yeah.
Dying Light.
Right.
This is less so much the game, but this is more just pooping around with Nimp and Rob. Like, this is like, what random chaos can we get up to where someone jumps off someone's head on the top of a bridge by accident and then falls to their death kind of situations.
Right.
Or grapple hooking out of the side of the building.
Right.
It's those moments that the video game developers constantly try and put into games to be like, oh, look how great this is, which the best game for that will forever be Saints Row 3. It created those moments instead of allowing them to happen naturally, and it succeeded, whereas I don't think anything else really has. But just the confusion, the not knowing what's going on, and then, oh no, it's nighttime and we're running away with our flashlights on as fast as we can because we're about to get wrecked, kind of thing. Like, it's it's a game I didn't put enough time into back then, and now I've put a lot more time into it. It's like, yeah, we should probably wrap that up real soon because Lord knows there's a sequel on the horizon.
Right.
Yeah, we got like 2 months.
I believe
in you. The question is that enough time? Because I'm pretty sure there's an entirely different zone in this game.
Oh, boy.
And my final best old game is Blair Witch. This is another game that I didn't put enough time into, and playing through it again this year was like, okay, I'm legitimately getting that creepy sensation, like that skin-crawling sensation, which... no other game has ever been able to produce. Like, no other game, period, has ever been able to make me feel that way. And I've got to give it credit where it's due. because that game is terrifying on so many different levels, while also being appropriately weird and out there for a Blair Witch game.
Mm-hmm.
So Blair Witch is fantastic. If you haven't played it, and like me, you wasted your Game Pass time with not playing it, it's like $20, dude. Just give it a shot. It's worth it.
Nimp, what's your best old game?
My best old game is No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
Because my kids and I are still playing that. My kids still ask me to play that with them. The game is at a point now where it's stable.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had any issues except for the world that we are trying to implode. So at that point, we're just kind of trying to break the game to see what it does, as opposed to the game just being broken. And the next thing you know, one of us is in space without a ship. So,
right.
But honestly, the game has come a really long way since release, and they've seemed to be doing good by the fans. And I've seen where they've come from. I don't even know if you can get the game for $20 anymore because everyone talks so highly of it now. I think it went back up to $60.
Yeah. I just remember too, they put all those expeditions in, like the time limited things this year too, which is really great too.
So you got all that fun stuff. The co-op works.
Yep.
Multiplayer works. It's all great. It all works. It's fun.
They also leaned into extracurricular projects this year as well. Like the Normandy is in the game. They did a special event that coincidentally, wink wink, timed out with Dune. Like you know, it's
a sandworm event. Wink.
Yeah. Like it's good on them for it. Like good on them for actually sticking with it and making it 10 and what could have been one of the biggest disappointments to possibly. I always say Ubisoft is the developer to learn from when it comes to sticking things out and seeing where it goes.
Yep.
I think Happy Games, is it?
Hello Games.
Hello Games. Yeah.
Hello Games. I think they were not. This is another lesson to be learned. Like, yeah, this could have gone real bad real quick.
Yeah.
They stuck with it and turned it around.
Yep.
And that's my thing. Hopefully, whatever next big project they push out, hopefully No Man's Sky has taught them that, hey, saying less goes a long way.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely keeps me interested in what they're going to be up to. But yeah, No Man's Sky, if you haven't played it before, check it out. It's like the only creative mode sandbox game that I've enjoyed playing, really.
Oh, I think that's true for me too, actually. Yeah. My best old game, there was only one game I could possibly do it for this year, and that was Hand of Fate 2. The sequel to one of my favorite games of all time, Hand of Fate 2. For better or for worse, had much more in it. It continues the...
If you don't listen, we do have a show called We Rogue Like It, which we covered this a lot.
Yeah, we like we do on We Rogue Like It. We played it for a whole month. I played a lot of it. It continues the thing that I liked from the first one, which is it's kind of I refer to it as D&D, but kind of cutting out all the stuff that I don't like character sheets and role playing and stuff like that. And it really leads you to having an RPG that is about the encounters and about the campaigns, and has a little bit better hack and slash gameplay in this one than the previous one. The previous one was not great. It's like I said before, there are so many more mechanics in this. I think it's largely a boon for the game, but you could argue that there was maybe a little too much stuff in this. But what is in there is pretty incredible, and we even barely scratched the surface of the kind of like endless adventure mode that turned out to be way more interesting than we thought in a really kind of cool way. Hand of Fate 2 is really great, and it is everything about it is really great, and it's one of those few games where it's like, yeah, you're wandering around a dungeon, but the dungeon is made up out of cards, and every card has an encounter on it. Like, it's one of those games. It's like, oh, and another Hand of Fate. Like you're never really gonna hear that. Let's talk about 2021's Alpha Protocol, though. Moon, why don't you start us off there?
This is this is the quintessential example of sometimes it's not what you play. Sometimes it's who you play it with.
Okay.
Because my Alpha Protocol award for this year has to go to the Tokyo Olympic Games 2020 released in 2021 video game.
Yep.
Because that game is broken on so many different levels.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's so stupid and hilarious that it's just chef's kiss, like madness at the best forms. And I think I literally spent 6 months this year playing that every single Friday night. Like,
right.
We played a lot of this game, and it's so stupid. It's a bad track and field game. It's a bad Olympics game, I would argue, because it does not cover a whole bunch of events. There's like 30 events, and if the Olympics only had 30 events, then that Olympics is over in like 2 days.
Right.
But at the same time, it was just fun to like go to the bathroom and then realize that the events just kept reloading, so that by the time I get back, everyone who I'm playing with is suddenly a master of the hammer throw, and I have got no idea what I'm doing still. It's like, okay, great. That's good to know. Yay. It's a bad, great game,
right,
is what I would say.
Nimp, what's your Alpha Protocol game of the year?
Mine is Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance.
Oh, yeah, right.
A bunch of my old buddies and I, who we originally played the Dark Alliance games with back in the PS2, all got together and played this, and it was just us talking the entire time. The game is not great. I haven't played it in a while, so maybe there's been some updates that have fixed some stuff, but it was fun enough for us to just sit there and shoot the crap like we used to, and then make fun of the game as we're playing it as well.
Right.
It is on Game Pass, or it was at least. I don't know if they took it off or not.
It still is.
I think it still is. If you want to check it out, that would be the route to go before deciding if you're going to purchase it or not, unless you get it for dirt cheap. But yeah, that game, boy, is that game rough. But it was still fun. Just felt like old times.
Yeah.
So, they managed to capture that. It felt like the original series with you just screwing around with your friends with a multi-tap on a PlayStation 2.
Yep.
But outside of that, my God, is that game, bro?
My favorite thing as well about that game, and part of one of the weird charms of it, is if you're playing it by yourself, like the combat is actually pretty solid. The second you jump into online with somebody, the latency is unbearably bad. So it goes from being pretty solid to hilariously stupid in about 4 heartbeats, and it's incredible, especially when you consider that like the team up moves in it. 2 of the character classes, in order to activate their version of the team up moves, you need to parry.
Right.
The worst thing for us was that we were running into bosses that in single player we had no issues with, but as soon as we got into multiplayer, like we just could not beat them at all. And it just that's when you would cheese like Canterbury and have her just shooting the boss from halfway across the map. And
Yep. But someone who fires further than the enemies can detect them from.
Right. Man. My Alpha Protocol this year was Bloodshore. This is the Wales Interactive FMV Battle Royale violent thing. I feel like it gets mentioned here at the very least because it's an FMV game. It is a really good one of those, but it's still an FMV game, so it's still kind of cheesy in all the right ways, and you see the seams pretty often of like, I've yet to choose an option, so there's a looping video in the background that maybe doesn't have the best loop still. So I think they did a really great job at actually making a cool battle royale thing. They did a really good job of kind of introducing you to this universe that they built. I think it's like the 13th or 30th season of this show. So like, this thing has been going on for a long time, and I think they largely did a really good job, but it's still the kind of cheesy, largely well-made FMV thing that I have an affinity for. That it might be a hard sell, but what Alpha Protocol B game isn't.
I think that the best part of these lists is that a lot of the games that we mentioned, if you're of age, sit around, just get drunk and shoot the ass with your buddies about the game, and you just get an enjoyment out of it. It may not be the enjoyment that the developers originally intended.
Right. All right, let's talk about our honorable mentions here. Moon, why don't you just knock out your whole list? Because usually we don't have a lot to talk about with each one of these.
Yeah, sure. A lot of these were based on, honestly, the amount of time I could or could not put into them. So right off the top, you've got The Ascent, Tales of Iron, Necromunda Hagdon, all games I started but did not put enough time in to feel comfortable putting on any lists. Outriders, I'm pretty sure at the last checkpoint on the last mission of that game, but there's a whole bunch of post-game content that I need to quote-unquote experience, so sure. Curse of the Dead Gods, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, both pretty solid, but just didn't make the list. Curse of the Dead Gods, I mean, how are you going to compete with Hades coming out like legitimately the same week you do?
Yeah,
like, come on.
It's rough.
Kill It With Fire. Thank you, Nick, for the perfect dumb experience I needed exactly when I needed it. This one was the hard one. Griflands.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of roguelikes and you haven't played Griflands, that's 6 roguelikes in one.
Maybe 8.
Maybe 8.
We had a wild month talking about this on We Roguelike. It just like unpeeling the layers on the game and be like, whoops, here's 2 more systems. Whoops, here's 2 more systems. Like there's so much game in Griflands that you could probably spend the next year playing it and maybe finish it in a positive way, but there's just there's a lot.
Like 3 different characters, 3 different stories, and within each of those characters you have a combat roguelike card deck game and a negotiation roguelike dark card building game. There's so much on that, and it's just like, I love you, Griflands, and your art style is amazing because you're a clay interactive game. But at the same time, just like, come on.
So much.
I'm only one person.
And
the final game, which this was debating whether or not this was going to make it onto my top 10 list, and this is again the quintessential. It's not so much what you play, but who you play it with. It's Aliens Fireteam Elite. That game is schlocky B movie at the best of times, and you just add in like playing it with a bunch of friends who scream whenever one of the aliens jumps out of a corner and comes. It's great.
Yeah. Nimp, what are your honorable mentions?
All right. My first one is Doki Doki Literature Club Plus. Only because that game still has scarred me.
So good.
Lake, I put on here as an honorable mention, just because for me it was just something slow that I just needed at the time it came out. Loop Hero. That was pretty fun. Persona 5 Strikers. I think I'm like halfway through that thing, but just haven't had a chance to sit down and really play it.
Yeah.
Hades. One day I'll get a clear.
I believe in you.
This next one, like Mortal Shell Enhanced Edition. That is seriously like so close. Like even now, you probably heard my keys of me just clicking it back and forth on possibly replacing a game on the top 10 list.
Is it 10? Is it 11?
Yeah, it's right there. Boyfriend Dungeon.
Yep.
Was another one that I had enjoyed playing. Kill It With Fire was another one that was really fun and dumb to play. And Unpacking. Really enjoyed the storytelling.
Right.
It was really good, just to make up like your own narrative, kind of. But it was a really good game. But yeah, all of those, I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Some more than others, but
mine. I start with Art of Rally, which is a game I really like, and there's a ton of stuff there. It just didn't make the list. Castlevania Advance Collection. It's 3 of the best Metroidvanias. Yeah. They work perfectly. And if you haven't played them, all 3 of them are incredible. You should go do that. Griflands, like we just talked about, like just didn't make the list. I don't know if I would ever be able to say I've played enough of that to pass judgment on it. So I will just put in honorable mentions.
That's what achievements and trophies are for, dude.
Oh god, I have 0 trophies in that game. There's like 14 of them.
I think I've got 2, dude.
Yeah, I played like dozens of hours. I have 0. Picross S Genesis and Master System Edition. I like as much as I like non-branding games. Like I don't know if I could put it on my top 10. This one's really good. I mean, especially if you have a fondness for the 16-bit era of Sega stuff, like they do a really good job. Shin Megami Tensei 5. This is largely just came out super late this year, and I have put maybe a couple hours into it, and I've gotten to like the 4th save point. So
yeah, it's on my 2020 candidates list or 2022.
Yeah. So like. It might scoot to mine as well, just because of like, there's no way anyone had enough time to unless you got a review copy like a month early. There's just no way.
Or if that was just the only thing you've been waiting to play,
right? Immortals: Phoenix Rising. This came out December of 2020. This is the sort of open world Ubisoft beat 'em up Greek game. I love this game.
Breath of the Wild-esque.
Yes. I love this game a whole lot. It just, everything in 2021 was really good. Also, I haven't played the last DLC, which turns it into a top-down, third-person Diablo hack and slash with loot. So,
sure, why not?
Yeah,
wild. And my last one, this is the one I had at number 10, was my number 10 or Boyfriend Dungeon. And it was like, either one of those could have landed in the 10th slot. Boyfriend Dungeon got scooted out just because I don't have 11 games in my top 10. And Boyfriend Dungeon is great. I feel like we've sang the praises of Boyfriend Dungeon pretty much the whole year ever since it came out, between Game Club and the main show and everything else. And Boyfriend Dungeon is great. You should go play it. It's fantastic. TVGP Community Game of the Year. I think it's like 40 or 50 games on the list. A whole bunch of people voted, and sneaking out a last-minute victory, Forza Horizon 5 took the crown here. There were like 10 ties underneath that. So, usually I talk about like the top 3, but this year with a bullet was Forza Horizon 5.
So did the FIA call a safety car and then like let the backmarkers pass to let Forza Horizon
exactly
right behind the number 2?
And then pitted the safety car one lap after. And
that's right. Oh, Forza Horizon 5 won. Whoa, oh. Yeah. All right. Let's get to the big list. The top 10, starting at number 10, Mr. Moon.
Possibly the most shocking entry into my top 10 list, if I'm going to be honest. It's MLB The Show.
Oh.
Because who knew I would give a crap about a baseball game? Who knew I would have fun playing a baseball game? And who knew, EA, that you could put a baseball game in with all of the achievements you might need, EA, without microtransaction-based achievements, EA.
Let's also say it helped that it ended up on the Xbox as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was Game Pass. It was free. It was the Series X version. That's literally the only reason why I'm playing it. And it was fun to just smack a ball around every now and again, and then like let the adaptive difficulty make it really hard for me, and then be like, no, I'm going to take a Boston Forza approach to this, and I'm just going to stick it on medium, and then just smack it out the park every single time it comes at me, because I am that good, kind of thing. And the glitches were great. We had the invisible hats that were happening, you know, or like they've got like so many mini games in there that it's absolutely ridiculous. And it probably helps that for my Diamond Dynasty team on one of the free packs that you get at the beginning, I did get Babe Ruth. So it's like, oh, you're batter number 2 and you're getting me 2 runs every game. Great. It made me care about baseball in a way that I didn't think I ever would or have in a long time. So much so that, like, stuck in my head from this year alone will be the guy who's on the cover of the game doing that double jump this year to get somebody out. And like he literally did a double jump, and it's like I wouldn't have known about that if it wasn't for MLB.
Right.
Specifically the show, not the organization as a whole. But no, again, it was dumb, thoughtless fun that I didn't need to think about when I needed it. And it was shockingly well developed with like a million different control options, a million different difficulty settings. Oh, you're a 3-tap person for the pitches, then we'll give you a 3-tap. Oh, you're a right stick swinger, like we'll give you that too. Oh, you want to do the rhythm-based down and slide and hold and a diagonal for your pitching? You can do that as well. Like, it's all there for whichever way you want to do it. And I didn't even touch the online version of it, but like watching the No Quarters crew do the home run derby all at the same time was hilarious. Like, MLB The Show is a quality game, and just like the FIFA games, now I will not play it for about another 5 years until I come back to it again.
Right.
Yep.
But that is my number 10. Mr. Nimp.
My number 10 is Recompile. This is the Metroidvania where you're playing as a computer program and you have no clue what is going on outside of the computer. Very Tron-esque. I really enjoyed playing it. Oh, I called it that last time too.
Yeah.
You should check it out, Moon. But yeah, I really enjoyed the fact that you don't know anything about the story and you're just picking up bits of data, and then you're starting to piece together, okay, this is what this facility is. This is, the people who were in this facility. This is the program that they, were trying to run. And then you find out that it's an apocalyptic setting. And yeah, it was just stupid fun, stupid simple. I also really enjoyed the fact that you eventually just unlock God mode and the ability for infinite flight, because you've gotten far enough in the game that they're just like, yeah, no, here, have it. And also the fact that the final boss, you don't necessarily have to fight. I'll leave that to your imagination, but it's just all kinds of different ways that you can go about playing this game. And it was just super fun, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So,
my number 10 is The Ascent. This is the RPG, the cyberpunk RPG that came out this year. I think what I love the most about it is it's a fairly solid shooter. It's a good RPG, but it really nails getting and understanding cyberpunk. Like, the
genre, not the game.
Yeah, the genre.
It understood the game better.
Maybe, yeah. I haven't played Cyberpunk 2077, so like I'm not gonna cast aspersions here about.
I have, and I will.
There you go. Yeah, it's my understanding that maybe CD Projekt Red's game did not understand the genre as well as others. But what I really like about The Ascent is it's not just like, ooh, everything's rainy. Oh, like Japanese writing, neon. Ooh, yeah. Like it isn't. It has that, but it's not primarily about that. It is about like a caste system. It is about working 4 jobs that all suck and like still not making ends meet. And the beginning of the game, one of the corporations goes bankrupt, which means that your section of the city is left to fend for itself. Like it has this sort of capitalist nightmare that Cyberpunk does really well. And then it also has the kind of modifying yourself to avoid detection or the police or stuff like that. Like it really does nail the Cyberpunk stuff, and it has a cool tech tree. Has a lot of really interesting gear. A lot of the weapons are good. A lot of the augments you can throw out and use are all really good. Like it's a really cool RPG, and it didn't overstay its welcome. It has a lot of fun side quests. Like it was just a really cool action RPG cyberpunk thing, and we don't really get those that often. Moon, you're number 9.
This is where my list starts to get even weirder. My number 9 is The Artful Escape. This is the game you would have heard me talking about for the past 2 months or so. This is the country music guitarist, come electronic light orchestra, sci-fi kind of visual, well, not even a visual novel, kind of a walking simulator. The style is not my style. The music is borderline my music style. The storytelling is good to better to above average. This is on my list because I mentioned it at the time. It is a quote-unquote experience. And I am willing to give these devs nothing but props for literally, as the kids call it, just sending it and like going the whole 9 yards, throwing everything they can at it to produce this experience that they wanted to produce, and just sending it out there into the world and seeing what people say. Like, if you are a fan of recreational drugs, especially of the fungal kind, I can only recommend you play this. There is no fail states. It is literally a hold the stick and hold a button kind of game. It will blow your mind on so many different levels. Like, even if you're not, give it a shot, because it's just the right side of crazy.
Right.
And I've got nothing but respect for the team who made it, because, like, hopefully they'll make something that's more in my personal preference, like, style. But they nailed this. Like, whatever they were going for, they definitely succeeded, and I cannot help but give them all the respect in the world for it.
Nymph, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is Death's Door.
Nice.
I also really enjoyed this game with the simple fact of there was the umbrella achievement that you had to get. And just having that crow run around looking dapper as hell with that umbrella. And just some of the quirkiness behind it. Like when you find the chef sailor, and then, you know, the whole thing with the Kraken. And, but it was really fun. My son actually started playing it too. He's enjoying it. He's given up on doing the umbrella achievement for right now because he says it's too hard. It kind of can be a lot, but but just like the bosses were kind of unique, where you're fighting like the pot witch who turns people's heads into pots, because why not? She turned. Go ahead.
That tower at the beginning, like your very first boss, is like, it reminds me of like a Final Fantasy VII boss, where it's just like, oh, you're now fighting a train. It's just like, okay,
now you're fighting a castle. Let's go.
It was just dumb fun. I really enjoyed it. So,
My number 9 is Loop Hero. Man, what just a wild concept. If you haven't played Loop Hero and you don't really know what it is, I encourage you to go check out the website. As you scroll down the website, the game plays itself in your browser, so it sort of shows you what a couple of loops look like in the game. It's an incredibly wild. What looks like on the surface is a deck building roguelike. Genuinely isn't. It's kind of an auto playing loop based deck builder, but the deck is the world.
The world. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get to build the world around the pathway that your hero is stuck on. It's one of those games where even though the hero is moving through the loop by itself, the battles go automatically. You're still doing a whole ton of stuff. It's not like an idle game where you're like, all right, let's go crazy, man. I'll see you in 20 minutes. Like, you're always switching out equipment and you're building the world. You're trying to make combos out of like, oh, if I build a forest next to this river, I get double effects for here. But if I build a 9 square of these rocks, then I get this other thing. And I got to surround this thing with those things. And it's the great thing that roguelikes can deliver, where you're learning a little bit more every run. And Loop Hero's runs don't need to end in death. You can just say like, this is getting too tough. I'm going to go back to the camp. I'm just going to dip out of this. I'm going to take my winnings and I'm going to go back to the camp. As a camp that you're building, like, that's wild in and of itself. But it has such a cool style. It has incredible music, and it's one of those games where you're just like, all right, that one did pretty well. I think I could do better than next one. Let me play this character one more time. Let me just do this, and then next thing you know, it's been like 4 or 5 hours. Loop Hero is really great. I haven't played it on the Switch yet. If it works over there, that's probably the best place to play it. But Loop Hero is just really, really great. Moon, what is your number 8?
I'm gonna reiterate something that has been said already on today's episode. Boyfriend Dungeon is really good. My number 8 is Boyfriend Dungeon. Again, a game that hit me at the right time. We chose to do it for Game Club, and having that smaller, more bite-sized experience is both a positive and a negative. I think if it was maybe a little bit longer with more variety, it might end up being higher up my list. But I don't know if this is a positive or a negative. It reminded me so much about Persona 3 Portable.
Right.
That it's just like, yeah, I really want to go play P3P now, or maybe even Persona 4. Or maybe I could buy a platform where Persona 5 is available and see if that's as good as it could be.
Yes.
Like, it's that gateway into those things that either you haven't played before, or in my case, I haven't played for a long time. And it's well written, it's well acted. Say what you want about diversity, but it's got it in spades, and it's so good to see the variety of people included in that game. Also, it's got probably one of the best cutscenes of all time, period.
Oh, it's so good.
It's ridiculous how great that is. I mean, like I said, it might be a little bit shorter than it could be. And I know they've got the DLC coming out with the 2 Kickstarter characters and additional dungeons and stuff like that coming. And it's like, that's fine and all, but I played it in the state it was in. I probably won't go back to it, to be honest, but it was what I needed at the right time.
Right.
So again, Boyfriend Dungeon is really, really good. It's a good sampler into that world. So that is my number 8. Mr. Nerp!
My number 8 is Forza Horizon 5. It is a good game for me to just shut my brain off and listen to a podcast and just race. I do have some issues with it, which is why it's not low, but it's not higher up on the list. Just because some of the event stuff where it's like, oh, you need the specific model at this specific level, and you get that model and you get that level and you go do the thing, and it's like, hey, you can't participate in the series because this isn't the right vehicle, and it's like, yes, it is. And it also doesn't help that the patch that was released a couple of weeks ago just made everything a hot mess. It is being fixed, but outside of the negatives, it's a real fun game to play around in. I'm still really enjoying driving my Unimog through the forest and just plowing through everything.
Yep.
So, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And my son still is trying to race better for you guys.
Okay.
We'll see how that works out. Yeah.
Appreciate
he hasn't
it.
really touched it. But
no.
I don't buy that for a second.
Yeah.
Well, some of the stuff he was asking me questions about, how you get better at racing and stuff like that, and I was showing him. And that was the other thing too, is like all the extra stuff that you can turn on and make it more accessible for, people who aren't finessing it as well as we are. So being able to show him the options that he can turn on to help him drive better. And then he shows me that you turn on all these certain options and the car basically drives itself.
Right.
So yeah, it's number 8. It's enjoyable. I like it. Radio stations, meh. The story, it sucks, and it's only made worse by the fact that you can't skip any of it. But other than that, really fun to play.
My number 8 is Fuga Melodies of Steel.
Here we go.
I think it's notable of how good this year is that it's way down here. I've spent a ton of time this year talking about it, so I'm not going to belabor the point here, but I think I have always been interested in CyberConnect 2's games, and I'm glad I gave this one a try. I have always sung the praises this year of the kind of back and forth between your kind of intermission stuff between battles where you're making friendships and improving the tank and stuff like that. And that playing into the battles where you're having people team up and the food you eat makes them better and stuff like that. It's a really great game. I played it, I think, like 3.5 times to get all the trophies, and I was still kind of like, yeah, I could probably play more of this. Yeah, let's keep going.
Let's see if we can upgrade the chamber and see how many kids we can shove through the cannon at once.
Yeah, maybe I can yeet 2 kids at a boss now. Yeah, and like it has the incredibly wild mechanic of just being able to one-shot a boss by sacrificing one of your crewmates. And it's brutal when it happens. Because that game does not pull punches about making you feel that decision you made. Fuga is really great. I think it's a game that a lot of people would genuinely like. It is really quite challenging without feeling impossible. And I think it's just a really great, cool, unique JRPG. I love it. Moon, what is your number 7?
No. In putting this list together, I tried to just put one sentence for each game to just give me a kicking off point for where it is, why it is, so on and so forth. The sentence for this game, and you'll get the game really quick, is remember the good, open brackets, bad, close brackets, times.
Okay.
Which means that this is, of course, Mario Party Superstars.
Yes, nobody wins.
Yes, nobody wins. The game that made me doubt if Mario Party is a good or a bad game. Like, you can't really say much more about it than that. Like,
right.
It's the greatest hits of Mario Party. Boards and mini games, and it's got all the characters, and it doesn't have that stupid co-op system where you've got little mini versions of other characters following you around. It's classic Mario Party at its finest. It still has all the dumb stickers, so now you can annoy people in customizing ways, so you can make Bowser noises the whole game. But more importantly than all of that, it has a functioning online version.
Yes, against all odds.
That you can reconnect to a game in progress on instead of it kicking everybody out like the last Mario Party did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did Nintendo do this? This was an accident. They will patch this out. I guarantee you.
Yep.
Like, I hate how good that game is because it's one of those things where it's like, crap, Mario Party might be really, really good. Like, we don't need one every year. You don't need one every 2 years. Maybe one every 6 years is fine. Maybe we should only be up to Mario Party 3 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really good, and also it's produced some of the best content that exists on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just has. May I present this gif of bigger right here kind of thing.
Bigger.
It's... Mario Party Superstars is my number 7. It probably shouldn't be, but I don't care. It's great and terrible all at the same time. Nim, tell me about your number 7. Let's move on from this hot mess.
All right, so my number 7 is the path that you're all expecting me to go down. Disgaea 6, Defiance of Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting it higher, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So the only reason that this isn't higher is because they've taken a lot of systems out. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because they've added a bunch of quality of life stuff in there too.
Mm-hmm.
But, you kind of weigh it out. I will say, if you are interested in playing a Disgaea game, this would be the one to check out first. If you get done playing this and you're like, I wish there was more, literally pick any other Disgaea game and you will be so overloaded with the amount of stuff that you can do that you will not complain. But, go ahead.
From a personal perspective, in your honest, humble opinion, as the representative of the Disgaea universe on the podcast, is the Prinny ratio high enough in this game?
Yes.
Nice.
Okay.
So they
That's
are there.
all.
They are represented. But like I said, they with the auto battling and stuff like that made it a lot easier to play it. The fact that there are less classes, there aren't class role skills anymore, which maybe they'll have that back, who knows. It's just they've it seems like that they're trying to bring it back to a more realistic place of, hey, we realize that you only have one lifetime to live. So, but yeah, the stories in these, I mean, they're always just dumb and stupid. You never get anything out of them, but it's just enough to keep you along. Yeah, I still really enjoyed this game. And I'm looking forward to see what they do with 7.
How dare you say you don't get anything out of this game? You get merchandise. That's what you get.
That's right.
Oh, all the time.
Right.
But, I mean...
Yeah.
As I point to my back wall with Prinnies on it.
Yeah. My number 7 is The Forgotten City. This is probably in my short list of, do you like The Return of the Obra Dinn? You should play this game. And that's all I'll say about it. Same reverse. Like, did you play Forgotten City? You should play Return of the Obra Dinn. And I won't tell you anything about it. They feel like they're very different games, but they feel like they're cut from the same cloth in some ways. It really is that kind of unfolding mystery that you're sort of thrust into. Forgotten City is this really cool time loop thing where you're just trying to get one step further every time you do the loop, and whatever that means to you sort of depends on how you tackle the game, in a way that I think makes it really great of, here's just a giant list of all the things you're investigating. Go crazy. Like, figure out what you want to figure out in whatever order, and it's all gonna come to a head at some point, and you get to figure out how you do it. I don't really want to say more about it, because I think people should go play it. It's also one of those games that it would be pretty hard to spoil because of just how much stuff happens. But I think like peeling back the layers of this game loop over loop is really, really satisfying. I think you should go check out Forgotten City. It's really great. Moon, what is your number 6?
Unpacking.
Mm.
Thank you, Game Pass, again, for this one, along with like 4 others on these lists so far. 1, 2, 3. Okay, literally every game I've mentioned so far, except for Mario Party, was on Game Pass. So
there you go.
Game Pass MVP 2021. Unpacking is a hard game to talk about because you tell people what it is, and they're like, literally, people have said this to me. That's not a video game. What's the point?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's zen gaming, quiet gaming when I needed it. Like, the music fits in perfectly with it, and for all of the bajillion other games that exist out there that literally have text boxes filled with words to tell you what's going on, and I don't remember. I love Griflands.
Mm-hmm.
Griflands has a glossary.
It does. It does, yeah.
Vampire the Masquerade Coteries of New York has a huge glossary.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, understanding why is because there's a lot of non-Earth-based things in there.
Mm-hmm.
But Unpacking kind of stole my heart this year because, as Nim pointed out earlier, and this is my one-sentence review of this game, it is an absolute masterclass in environmental storytelling.
Absolutely.
It literally tells you nothing and lets you figure out the stuff for yourself just by unpacking the stuff. And little simple things, such as you have a box in the bedroom and you start pulling out all of the bedroom stuff, and then all of a sudden a frying pan comes out of it.
Right.
And you're just like, okay, I get that. As someone who literally moved this year and unpacked all of his bedroom stuff and had like a random, like, literally, I think it was a frying pan in my bedroom box, and I was like, why do I have a pan in my bedroom box? It should
How'd you
be
get
in the
here?
kitchen box, labeled
Last
kitchen
box
stuff.
that wasn't taped shut. That, oh crap.
Yep.
Or I've got a bit of space to fill. This frying pan fits in this hole nicely. I'm just going to put it in there. And whoever said it, shout out to the best tweet of the end of December this year, which is the villain of the year for 2021 is that guy you move in with in Unpacking.
100%. Yep.
Because screw that level. Screw that person specifically.
Yep. Screw that dude.
Like, and again, nothing is said.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. There's like a sentence about each picture, but you only get the sentence after the unpacking is done.
Yep.
So you've already created the story in your head about exactly what's going on, and then a sentence shows up. It's like, okay, cool. Like, Unpacking is a charming, wonderful little game, and I'm so glad. I think the creator is genuinely a nice person online as well,
Mm-hmm.
and like seeing them lose their mind as it came out, and then immediately was like number 2 on Steam, and like hit the Xbox downloads charts real hard as well. It's like, cool, like, good job. Like, thank you everybody for doing this. And that thing was hot as hell on Twitch for like 3 weeks as well, which is great to see too.
Yeah,
like, go play Unpacking. Unpacking is great. Unpacking is my number 6. Nam, unpack your number 6 for me, please.
Heyo.
My number 6 is Riza 2, Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I specifically wrote the long names just for Moon. So
it's all Japanese to me. That's all I know.
Yes. So I never really got into the Atelier series until Riza came out. So I've played a little bit of some of the past ones. For some reason, they didn't stick. Riza 2, picking up after Riza 1, was great. You basically just pick up right where the first game left off. It was like a year or two later, I think it was. I just love crafting in this game, and that's all it is. It's that whole Dark Cloud 2 thing of,
Yep.
oh, hey, I opened a chest and there's mud in there. Any other game, you'd be like, screw this game. And these games is like, good, I need that mud.
Hell yeah, mud.
Yeah. Then you get to like the certain points where it's like you're fighting these enemies and you're feeling like, okay, I don't have enough, like I'm not putting on enough damage. You don't just sit there and grind your characters because that barely does anything. You have to go through and you have to start leveling up your weapons. And you do that by either crafting new weapons or you sit there and you start boosting the stats in your weapons, which requires you to grind the crafting materials that you need. And it's this whole vicious cycle of, without realizing it, you're mid-maxing where all of a sudden your swords are now like straight 9s and, you know, your defense and you're regaining health and all this stuff. Everything is set to 9s and it's just a walk in the park. Until you hit the final boss, and then you realize, oh no, this is the other wall that I have to conquer.
Right.
So, I really enjoy the crafting. That's mostly what I'm there for. They change it enough from game to game that it takes a bit, and it's kind of overwhelming at first because they just kind of throw it at you where it's like, hey, this is all the stuff that you need to do, here's all your windows, and you're sitting there trying to read it and none of it makes sense. And then like 30 hours later it finally clicks about how you do things. So yeah, it's just stupid fun. I really enjoyed it. So cheerful. It was a nice blue sky game for all the doom and gloom that we've been having.
Yeah. My number 6 is Forza Horizon 5. I'm sure most coverage of this has been sort of reductive of just like, it's more Forza Horizon. It's a Forza Horizon 4 sequel, which, yes, I mean that's why it's so good. But for me, part of what I liked so much about it is, I think, kind of contrary to the point that Nimp made, is I like that there was a better variety of cars that were required in races. Not only the kind of seasonal stuff, like the pass stuff that they have, but also just like, hey, we're going to do this race and you need to be in some sort of truck. Go crazy. Like, I feel like that wasn't always a super big focus of, especially 3 and 4. And I like that. I like that there seemed to be more of the kind of chapter by chapter story events this time. Most of them were pretty long. Most of them were pretty good. I like that they give you an opportunity of just kind of doing weird stuff, especially in the, hey, we're going to shoot another movie event. So like, go as fast as you can and then just jump off this cliff and here's your cool scene. And I appreciate that they tried, and they haven't gotten there yet, but they're on the right direction of trying to avoid what especially Forza Horizon 4 did poorly, which is, welcome to the race fans, let's look at your map. Blech. Here's 200 icons. I like that they unlocked a subset of races, or a race type, by going to the Horizon Festival location, and it's like, oh, you did the street race one, here's all the street races available. I don't think they necessarily have solved the problem yet, but I appreciate that they have tried to avoid gating stuff unnecessarily. They're trying to avoid some of this map barf that they've had in the past. And of special note is the accolade system, the kind of like in-game achievements system. I think that's really clever. I like that there are like hundreds and hundreds of them. And some of them are just race from point A to point B in less than 2.5 minutes. Or do this danger sign in a garbage car and try and get 3 stars. They didn't really need to do that because Lord knows the actual achievements are challenging enough as it is. But I like that it gives you an even longer tail on this thing where it's like, man, I feel like doing I feel like doing speed zones today. And it's like, oh, I haven't done these 30 accolades that are all have to do with speed zones. Oh, okay, cool. I can go do, get 3 stars in this speed zone in a Corolla. All right, well, let's buy one of those and let's see what I'm going to do. And like, for me, it gives me something to come back to other than do the races for winter. That stuff is good, but it's not always the thing I want to do. So I got to give them a lot of credit. Forza Horizon 5, I think, game over game, these games have gotten better. And I think Forza Horizon 5 is another thing where it's like, all right, cool, you just made another one of these and it's better than before somehow. So like, all right, this is incredible. I'm waiting for 6. Like, start the countdown. Moon, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is Death's Door.
Okay.
Which I'll be honest, I was helped a lot. I think it was you who texted me, Boston, when we were playing this. I think it was you who mentioned, hey, just so you know, the umbrella mode is like makes the game a lot harder.
Yeah.
And it was something that I breezed through the first bit of the game. I was like, this is a little bit too easy, especially with the weapon upgrades you can get so quick. So then I immediately restarted it and then did the umbrella mode for the rest of the game. Like, I think I'd only done like the one boss so far.
Yeah.
And just did the whole rest of the game on the umbrella mode. Also because achievements,
right.
It's me.
Right.
Come on. And yes, I am that kind of weirdo. Yes, I am that kind of moron. I play things on the hardest difficulty. I like to quite frequently because, especially if it's a tried and tested formula of like a first-person shooter or a third-person hack and slash game, I play it on the higher difficulties because playing on the higher difficulty gives me more challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Because, to be honest, when you play games for as long as we have, sometimes these things can get a little rote.
Mm-hmm.
And finding things to make them not so rote is quite good. And, like, just playing this game through, like, it was hard, but not too hard on the umbrella difficulty. But at the same time, like, the art style, the art direction in the game, the level design, the secrets in the game are insanely good. The stupid, cute little flowers that follow you around.
Yep.
Like, Death's Door is a quality game that kind of came out of nowhere for me. Because it was one of those things where, like all the games that we've talked about this year, it was like we saw a trailer, we liked the trailer, and then I instantly forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know, I'll get to it when I get to it, I guess. But I just had a lot of fun playing that game. And the last boss was frustrating as all kinds of hell, don't get me wrong. But all told, it was pretty well balanced. And, like, I think all around, that's probably maybe my second or third favorite game of the year. Like, if you take everything as a whole and average it all out and do the whole median crap that everybody wants to talk about, I think it's probably maybe the third best game of the year so far, would be my guess. That's why it sits at number 5 on my list.
Right.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But Death's Door is fine. It's good. Is it on Game Pass? It was on Game Pass. It still is on Game Pass. Who knows?
No.
Give it a shot if it is on Game Pass.
I don't think it was ever on
It
Game
wasn't
Pass.
on Game Pass, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, give it a shot. It's definitely worth your time, and charming as all kinds of hell. Imp, take me away from my door into your number 5.
My number 5 is Scarlet Nexus.
Right.
So, this does a cool thing where it sort of splits the story between 2 characters. You pick one at the beginning of the game and you just go. And you make it to the first plot twist, and you're like, all right, this is nice. You make it to the second plot twist, and you're like, all right, this is interesting. You make it to the third plot twist, and you're like, all right, this is getting a little off the rails. And then you make it to the fourth plot twist, and you're like, what the hell is this game even anymore?
Oh, man.
And this is just on one run. I've started the other character's run. I haven't gotten very far into it, but from my understanding is that it will fill in some of the blanks that were left out when you were playing as the other character.
Ah, I see.
It's not like a fully brand new story. There is some overlapping, but you just get that extra stuff that you missed out on that were kind of hinted at as you played as one of the characters.
Mm.
The combat was pretty fun. Just being able to lift a front end loader and throw it at an enemy boss, or having ripping the map apart to mess them up. It's just a fun overall game. The story is absolutely crazy. I don't even know if I could properly recap it right now.
Right.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to the other character and seeing how it all kind of wraps up together. So,
all right, my number 5. This top 5 is really tough, and you could probably switch any of these, and you would be right for 2021, which is tough. My number 5 is Unpacking. I echo the stuff that both of you guys were saying. A fun thing I learned about when I was looking up who wrote the soundtrack to this, right before we started recording. Same person who wrote the soundtrack for Hand of Fate 1 and 2, which is very interesting. I have an innate need to sort and organize things, so Unpacking feels very much like an experience made for me.
Hold on. You need to sort and organize things. How many listicles are we doing at the end of the year this year?
I plead the 5th. So I think on its surface, I have been interested in Unpacking for a really long time, of just like, yeah, I would like to play this chill game where you just unpack boxes and you put the stuff on shelves, and like you put the stuff away. Like, sure, that sounds, without having to do the real world heavy lifting and building a bed and flat pack and all that stuff. But then, of course, having the story on top of it that, as we've talked about, was genuinely surprising and genuinely good. Of like, number one, there actually is a story here, and then number two, it actually turns out to be both really good and very heartfelt. In a game that would have been really great without it, but just kind of excels because of it. And seeing all of her stuff age over time, especially like that stuffed animal you have at the beginning, like fading and changing colors and having the patch on its chest, and like all of the stuff that she accumulates and then kind of gets rid of and then accumulates again, like it's a really cool special game that is one of those games where it's like, look, if you have like 2 to 3 hours, just sit down and play all of it and just relax with the music and unpack a bunch of stuff and get angry because the game doesn't want you to put this perfume bottle here, it wants you to put it over there, and where's this bar of soap actually go? And
just turn off that mode.
Yeah, the boyfriend is really terrible, and it is genuinely really good, and definitely one of the biggest surprises this year in a really, really pleasant way. And it's my number 5.
So that's actually something else I'd bring up too, is that my daughter absolutely enjoyed playing this game.
Yeah.
And absolutely got annoyed with trying to put certain things away in the game, telling her it doesn't go there, and then me having to explain to her, it's like, yeah, this isn't like your room. Things actually have to go places.
Yeah, I didn't know until I beat the game that there was an option to turn that restriction off, which I kind of like having it on, because it's sort of like, what is this thing? Where is it going? Oh, I see. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
It's a GameCube, boss.
Yes, it's a GameCube. That's why it has a handle. Yeah.
God, so many of those people that didn't get that either.
It's so good.
Like there's like seasonings that I was looking at. It's like, I don't know, this could be all season. I don't know. And then people are like, what is this box thing? I'm like, are you kidding me?
Dude, we are the elder statespeople of the world.
Yeah, man. All right, Moon, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is the Forgotten City. It's really impossible to talk about this without literally spoiling so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, other than what you said earlier, Boston, I will just add one thing to it. I think this is for a roguelike / time loop / that kind of game. I've never seen one do a quest system that actually helps.
Yes.
This nails that quest system, like the memos, the things you need to do, what you can and can't change, and the fact that, like, literally at the start of the game, you've got a dude who you can just be like, go save that person from there, go stop this person from doing that, deliver these items to this person right now, please, so I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just set all of the stuff which you've already done in motion on its way. And like, I really like that because it's kind of like having a previous version of you saved to go and do that kind of stuff while you're doing everything else.
You have your gopher, and then it actually manages to pay off in a story way, which is pretty impressive. Yeah, it's
so good, and like, it's one of those things. Yes, it was a mod beforehand, but so what? Who cares if it was a mod? Even as a mod, that is impressive.
Yep.
The fact that they then turned it into its own game, and it's the only part of the game that I think before I knew it was a mod, I believe I came on the show and I said, it's got a real Skyrim feeling at the beginning.
Especially when you talk to people and it zooms in center frame of just this face right up in your face. Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then I feel like that's like the only time it really has it. Like, other than that, it doesn't even, like, after that first time, I didn't think of it again as like having a Skyrim feel. It was just that very first time I was like, whoa, this is very Skyrim.
Yeah.
And you know what? Good on them. Like, what? Like 6 people at most made this? I think it might have been less than that.
Very small, yeah.
Like, it's a tiny team, and good job to them. Like, I look forward to going back and figuring out what the most time-efficient way to do the loop is. How am I going to do it in one? That's what I want to know.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's the fun one.
There's an achievement for doing it in one.
Yep.
And it's just like, oh, because it says from a new save, so it means you can't have somebody do all of the stuff for you. So I look forward to getting all of the deeper achievements in that. But the Forgotten City is my number 4. Mr. Nimp, what is yours?
My number 4 is East 9 Monstrum Nox.
Yes.
Yes.
We're down the rabbit hole now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's even worse that it's an East game. So East games have always held a special place in my heart, and playing this one is no different. I would argue that this is kind of a Metroidvania RPG. You always get items that help you get further into dungeons, help you fighting bosses. They've actually added in this one new abilities where you can switch to different characters and you can start running up walls, gliding, grapple to certain areas, all kinds of random stuff. The story in this still takes place. It's still it still follows the journals of Adel as he continues. The fact that they throw a plot twist like right in your face within the first 10 minutes of the game of all of a sudden there's 2 main characters and you don't know what's going on.
Right.
But yeah, I really liked it. It's a lot smaller. Well, not a lot, but it is smaller than the other East games just because this only takes place in one city. But the city itself is pretty massive. There's a lot of exploration for you to find. There's a lot of for you to do. There's a lot of things for you to find and a lot of puzzles for you to figure out. But man, just once I beat that game, I was like, all right, I'm ready for 10. Let's go.
Bring it on.
Yeah. So yeah, East 9, very fun game, very enjoyable. That's all I got.
My number 4 is probably the one that moved around in my list the most. At some point, it was number 2, and it could still go there, and that's Dungeon Encounters. Just probably the most like coming directly for me out of left field game of 2021. It's probably you probably could have put this in your best Alpha Protocol game here as well. It is the most budget game of 2021 that was too expensive at $30 until you get into it and you're like, wow, this is way cheaper than it should be. Probably the game I devoured the fastest this year. Couldn't put it down. Turn the music off because it's an abomination. It's so bad. But I think Musin put it best when he was talking about it on Pup. It's a JRPG that gets out of your way. There's virtually no story. It's like a paragraph, and then it doesn't give you any more story for the next 30, 40 hours. There's no big anime cutscenes. There's no info dump. There's no wiki in the game or anything. Like, you're fighting clouds and supercomputers and seaweed and a ninja and a dragon and a UFO. Like, and all of that gets out of your way, and it just gives you a dungeon crawler where you're discovering the map and you're finding lost party members and you're avoiding traps and you're upgrading all your skills and you're trying to stop the dungeon from punishing you until you get this thing where you can just walk right through stuff that was bothering you. And on the flip side, you have an incredibly mechanically simple battle system of when the bar fills up, you can attack. You got your physical defense, magical defense, health. That's it. But the beauty of it really becomes, how do you juggle all of this stuff? How do you use your limited skills? How do you prioritize correctly? How do you decide when you dip out of the dungeon? And how do you build your party members? Because nobody has a job. Nobody has a role. Nobody has better innate stats than someone else does. So this dude that looks like a wizard, you can totally make into like a gun-toting katana user if you really want. Like, the beauty of Dungeon Encounters is it is a pure, straight JRPG that is disinterested in wasting your time and is very interested in just turning you loose and letting you figure it out. And I love Dungeon Encounters. I loved it even more when I got party wiped by stepping on the wrong title and had to go down and recover my team and slowly bring them back one by one. Like, the game, it never really feels cruel, but if you're going to mess up and you're not going to pay attention, it will punish you and let you recover yourself pretty nicely. And Dungeon Encounters is really great for people that have brainworms like Nimp and I.
Nicely is kind of a lot.
Yeah.
It's gonna let you twist in the way.
Yeah, but I think if you have the JRPG brainworms, this is a super high recommendation for me of just, here is a really good JRPG that will not waste your time and has a metric ton of content in it for that $30. All right, Moon, you're number 3. The tough stuff.
My number 3 is, like, you're not wrong. Top 5 could be probably looped in any order you want here. They are a loop of heroes in our top 5s. My number 3, however, is Forza Horizon 5. How do you improve on arguably what is one of the most perfect franchises ever? Like,
yep,
the Horizon games are amazing, and if you doubt how amazing they are, go back and play the 360 version of Forza Horizon 2 instead of the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 version of Forza Horizon 2, where you literally couldn't smash through walls. So let me tell you how great these games are. I love these games. And Nimp is right, the music is lackluster. I haven't really suffered really that badly with any bugs or issues like that. So, like, it's all been jolly good times for me, where I just get in a car, I drive randomly across the country to get to an event, smashing billboards as I go. and then get to the event, do it, and then move on. And it's always fun to just go in and randomly find like some cool custom paint for whatever car you've got. Like, it doesn't matter what car you've got. There's gonna be an N7 skin.
Yep.
And there's gonna be an anime girl skin.
Yep.
And then everything else after that is just fine. There's so many more out there that's unbelievable. Like I said, I got a Fallout themed mini skin that said mini nuke on the back, and it's just like, you know what? Like I can't really complain because that's absolutely perfect. And like, Forza Horizon continues to just be everything you want from a racing game, where if you want the hardest of the hard, you can go for it. If you want to pull a Boston and stick everybody on easy so they're passing the first checkpoint when you hit the finish line, you can do that too. And like Nim said, like, there's driving assists, there's turn assists, there's aim assists, there's the amount of customization you can do in the game is mind-blowing. And then on top of that, it also happens to be a very great game on top of that. This would be number 1 on my list, except it has drift zones. So screw that. It goes number 3.
You get docked. Yep.
I'm kidding. It would be number 3 anyway. But yes, my number 3, Forza Horizon 5. Nimp, take us away.
My number 3 is Dungeon Encounters.
There you go.
I'm automatically going to disagree with one thing that Boston said. When you said this game does not waste your time, do you not remember floors 60 through 69? Or floor 92?
I do. I'm mostly thinking about like an hour-long anime cutscene that opens the game where it's like, in the world. It's like, no, stop. So let me play it.
But yeah, if you just want a straightforward game, this is it. I had a lot of fun playing this game. Even to the point where I got super mad at it for letting me screw up teleportation and then having to find my party like 3 times in a row across 80,000 tiles.
Yep.
But yeah, just even fighting the secret boss, which, did you ever go back and do that?
No, I've seen it, but I haven't played it.
Yeah. That secret boss was just fun. Like I had said in the show, the fact that it just throws you up against a wall and just does not let you go, just made it all that much more enjoyable, and showed how much more I needed to prepare, but how I was able to still pull it out of my butt to make it work. I pick it up. It's got to be on sale for holidays at some point.
I'd figure.
But even then, if you're interested and you see it for $30, I would still say pick it up.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's my number 3.
All right, my number 3 is probably the best game this year that has the worst name, and that's Returnal, which is still a bad game. Housemarque makes great games, and finding out they made like a third-person action dashing bullet hell roguelike sounded like it was very much up my alley. And it turns out, the company that makes incredibly tight action games once again made an incredibly tight action game. It's so responsive in a way that's genuinely really hard to explain without getting your hands on the controller and just being able to say like, okay, I can dash any direction. I can dash through stuff, and I'm doing, after an hour or two, you're doing some crazy acrobatics. It genuinely does use the DualSense really well. The one of the triggers pulls down halfway for one fire type, pull it down all the way for another fire type. Sort of your like alternate fire, kind of big fire mode. I think it's an incredibly great looking game. I think the story is really interesting. I think it handles the kind of looping thing really well. I like how it unfolds sort of level over level. I think it's especially interesting once you hit the halfway point of the game and it kind of shows you the rest of the game that you have ahead of you. Of special note is the music in the 4th area, that as you're going through the level, you're sort of like, is this, wait a minute, is this that song? No, probably not. I don't know. No. And then you get closer and closer to the boss, and you're like, yeah, that's totally this incredibly famous, somehow licensed song they put in here. And then it gets louder and louder and more intense as you kind of get this giant climb up to the boss, where it unveils this really wild version of this incredibly famous song that everybody knows that they somehow put in this game. It is still baffling.
I will say as well, like, if someone who hasn't played it, I know that game when I see a GIF or a clip of it on the internet.
Yeah.
Because it's visually so striking.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that somehow they turned their 2D shmups into a 3D space.
Yes.
And still made them so visually outstanding.
Yeah, like every wave of bullets that is coming at you are like bright red or purple or blue or something. Like everything in the game is so incredibly clear in a way that you might see in like Super Stardust HD, but it's a third-person, over-the-shoulder shooter this time that also happens to be kind of this repeating time loop roguelike thing. It's really great, and a large part of it is the story, which I won't spoil, because PS5s aren't exactly easy to come by, and this game did not have sort of an in-run save function for almost this entire year. So I know a lot of people understandably skipped on it for a while. But for me, just it feels like one of those great games that's just like, I wish I could get a controller with in someone's hands to just sit here and play this, like feel how good this plays. And that's one of the biggest reasons it's number 3 for me, is it's just such a tight game in such incredible ways. Returnal's great, and I wish it didn't have such a goofy name, but it's super good.
That you could continue a run.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can now, but you know, I haven't played it since they put out the big patch to let you save your run. So I hear it works great, but that was never really a big problem for me. All right, Moon, you're number 2.
Apparently I'm a bloober boy because my number 2 is The Medium.
Right.
One might argue that this is Bloober's first attempt at a AAA game. Because I like Blair Witch, but Blair Witch is a B game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of their games have all felt like very low budget.
Right, like they didn't have enough budget to get there.
Yeah, and Layers of Fear started out as like a demo that eventually became something bigger. Like,
mm-hmm.
You know, and Observer is apparently a fantastic game. I haven't played that one though yet. But then along comes The Medium. Spoiler alert, Game Pass day 1. Just saying.
Right.
Just saying. It was a Game Pass game. Another one. They made a walking simulator psychological puzzle horror game with a very unique spin on it. Like the whole 2 universes thing, which is incredible, to be honest, the way they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And the art style, the acting, the gross human flesh walls. I wish I was kidding.
No, I believe you.
And honestly, they took on some of the darkest content you can possibly take on in any form of storytelling. And I think they handled it with a style and a grace that you don't genuinely get without it feeling exploitative. And it didn't in this case. It genuinely didn't feel like they were doing it for shock value. but it is a very, very dark theme that carries throughout this entire game. Several dark themes, in fact, because some of the stuff in there is related to the downfall of Poland during World War II, or after World War II, I should say. And so much of the content would have been handled poorly, and I actually think they did a very good job without trying to be like feather light and not address something. No, they address certain issues, and it is heartbreaking at the best of times and terrifying when it's at the worst of times. Like, it's genuinely speaking, it was an incredible experience to go through. The voice acting is all incredible as well, and not to mention, it was one of the first. I think it was one of the first Unreal 5 games that I'd ever seen, or maybe like late 4.9 or something.
Something like that, yeah.
But the game looks fantastic as well, and it's just like, okay, like, great, this is what we're going for. Fantastic. Let's have more of this, please. And then I don't think anything's come out that looks as good as the Medium did all year. Like, from a pure visual perspective, like, don't get me wrong, Forza Horizon's phenomenal looking. But that's also cars in trees and races and stuff like that, which we've seen plenty of times before. Like, the Medium is such a variety of things and such a grotesquerie of things as well that it's just like, sure, why not? Let's go there.
Right.
And like, don't get me wrong, it didn't make my skin crawl the way Blair Witch did. But it was one of those games that it stuck with me ever since. Like remembering the Friday night that I was playing that game and I got to a big story moment and I was in a party at the time with Rob, was just like, yo, you need to shut the hell up right now because I'm listening to something serious going on.
Yeah.
I can still remember that moment of one of the reveals of that game was like, jeez, just maybe I should stop playing this because this is kind of depressing, but that's kind of the point at the same time. Like, the Medium is fantastic storytelling, and if you are a fan of horror games and you haven't played it, it's always worth your time to give it a shot. I think it's like a 6-hour game as well at tops. So give it a shot, see how you feel. Medium is my number 2, Mr. Nymph.
My number 2 is Ratchet and Clank: A Rift Apart.
Nice.
I still really love this series. I still really enjoy the fact that they have these crazy over-the-top guns that you just keep upgrading, and it makes them even more crazy.
Yeah.
I enjoy that they introduce another Lombax, and there's some, not weird, but there's just different story now because there are 2 of these, and you've only ever seen one, and if you've ever played the series, you know that they've all just disappeared for God only knows why.
Yep.
It was just really fun having this is like the series that I always enjoy that would come out like once every couple of years, and I always look forward to it because it was just a good shut your brain off, hold the trigger down, and everything just dies and you move on. And you beat up a bunch of stuff in the environment to get your bolts so that you have the money so that you can eventually figure out how to unlock the Rhino. And then once you get the Rhino, it's just basically hands, gloves off, everything just dies.
Yep.
So but yeah, really enjoy. I also like how they integrated the trigger pressure with the controller, where you can start to feel how low in the magazine you are for each weapon that you have.
Yep.
I still never paid attention to it because it would always be that thing where all of a sudden I can feel my right trigger just hitting all the way in and then nothing's happening. I'm just like, oh, magazine's empty. I need to switch to a different gun.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just really dumb fun that I really enjoy the series for, and I wish we have had more in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to what they do with the next bunch.
Yep. My number 2 is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. It's very much like Forza Horizon, where it's like, it's another Ratchet and Clank game, but to me, that's like, it's another $2,000 steak dinner. Like, it's gonna be incredible. Like, it's some of the best, not only the best graphics, like, this game looks so incredible. They figured out how to do like a really great 60 frame ray tracing version of this game, and it looks so good and it's so smooth.
To the point that it almost hurts depending on what's happening.
Yeah, like, and I agree with you. I really like the two Lombaxes, like switching between the two characters depending on which planet you're going to go to, and it's always kind of switching the between these two different perspectives. You're switching robots at some point too, so like the both characters are sort of out of sorts with their companion. The open levels they have, most Ratchet & Clank games at this point have kind of like, oh, here's this really big planet that you can kind of explore at your leisure. This one was pretty solid. You got those cool rocket boots that you could kind of, you could do the cool like left trigger, right trigger alternating thing to kind of charge them up. Had a lot of fun finding all the gold bolts and finding all the secrets, and they told a cool story about you going through all these dimensions and what that means for, like, oh, we're gonna roll our eyes because this bad guy's back. Oh, great, okay. But they did pretty well with that, and it's one of those games that I think Forza Horizon 5 does a really good job of it on the Xbox side, but this does a really great job of showing off, hey, here's what an SSD can do. We're gonna switch between entire levels at the drop of a hat, and like, here's a portal, I'm in this level for 2 seconds, go through a portal, like it loads in a millisecond, I'm off into this other level now, and we're doing that multiple times, and being able to just get in your ship, have the animation of you flying to space, have the animation immediately cut to you coming back down, and you're on another planet. Like, there's no load times, there's no nothing, and I think it's all really, really, really great. If there's one small negative I would have about this game, it left me wanting more, but not really in a negative way. It's like, oh man, if I could, oh, it's so good. Like, do you have more of this? Like, it's just, I do wish, I think we talked about it on the show a couple weeks ago, where it's like, I wish there was something more you could do in challenge mode, because that's usually more fun, and it's much more difficult. There's a great risk reward there with the bolt multiplier. Yeah. I wish that was there, but I'm very happy with what was there. It's another Ratchet & Clank game, which means, great, I got to play another incredibly cool, immaculately designed third-person kind of character action platformer this year. It's still a Ratchet & Clank game. It's not like all of a sudden a GTA clone out of nowhere, like some other games that did that on the PS2. So it's great. I loved it, and I think I think that game is super great. Moon, your number one. Top of the list.
Oh no! In this case, there can be only one. Or in this case, 8. Or a village, depending on how you want to read the front cover of the game.
Aha.
Yes, that's right. For those of you who don't know, my number one this year is Resident Evil 8 Village. VIIH, however you want to say it.
It's Latin, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. I don't know how they keep making these games better.
Yeah.
Like, let's rewind to like 3-4 years ago.
When 6, 5.
Well, yeah, take your pick, 5 or 6, or any one of the other stupid games that came out between then and there, including the episodic ones, which are apparently pretty good, but also episodic Resident Evil. Mm-hmm. You play 6 with its giraffe logo.
Forgot about that.
And in concept, 6 is a fantastic game. Because it's 3 different characters, 3 different play styles, 3 different game types. You've got your Leon with the action, your Chris with the traditional, and your whatever Wesker's kid's name is with the
I think it was Jack, wasn't it?
Bloody no. That's how little I care about 6. And Resident Evil is on a downswing. A very, very serious downswing. And then they take like a 2-3 year break, and then all of a sudden it's 7, which is amazing.
Right.
It's the 2 remake, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Village, where it feels like Village came out in January or February. Can I get away with spoiling this game?
That's up to you. It's your list.
It's number 1. Minor spoilers for Resident Evil Village 8-inch, whatever. Skip ahead a couple of minutes if you don't want to hear this. The whole point of the game is that your child has been kidnapped and frozen into a jar and split into 4 sections.
Gotcha.
And your mission is to get the 4 sections of your child.
I was going to say to assemble your child.
Right.
Put them in this pedestal and then smash bang wallop your child is back and alive again.
Okay.
Your crystal child. Like, what?
What Resident Evil?
Like, legitimately, there's a moment where like the guy tells you that that's what's happening. And your response is to be like, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Okay, I'm in.
Sold.
And the fact that you're playing as the same guy from 7 as well is a nice touch. And that story continues. But then the fact that they just lean into all the Resident Evilness of it. Like, all of the history of Resident Evil. Like, there's bad blood going on between everything. Obviously, Lady Dimitrescu is in this one, who is famously taking over the internet like half of this year. You've got 4 zones, and each of the 4 zones in the game feel like a different kind of game as you're going through them. There is secret challenges, there's secret bosses, and one of the bosses refers to Chris as a boulder-punching idiot.
Great.
Yep.
I love it.
They know.
Yeah.
They know. Like, Resident Evil went through its Fast and the Furious phase, where it got real bad for a while, and then they just looped back around and were like, let's just lean into it.
Yeah,
Just
I had a little bit of time in Japan.
Like, it is so ridiculous on so many different levels, but still, gameplay-wise, it's great. Story-wise, it's great. Tension, it does action, it does horror, it does everything. It has a section which is kind of like PT, which really freaks me the hell out a lot. Like, imagine the thing in the sink in PT, except it's 12 feet tall and chasing you.
Oh no!
Like,
Jareth. Jareth.
It's horrifying, dude. Like, I don't know how they did it. I don't. Like, Resident Evil 2 will forever have a special place in my heart, and the fact that they remade that at the quality level that remake is fantastic. Also, thank you for putting notes at the end of that version of the game to be like, hey, play it again with the second character.
Right.
Because it never said in the original, put the other disc in and then load up your completed save file and you play the second playthrough.
Right.
Like, but everything that they've put into this game is just, I don't know how it got better. I know it did. I know it feels better. I like the fact that they throw references to what are you buying in there as well, which everybody knows at this point.
Yep.
And like, now you're hunting and cooking as well, by the way, because why not?
Is this the Snake Eater of Resident Evil?
That's a great question.
No, because you're not doing as much hunting as cooking as I would like. It's mostly just like you do the cooking to get permanent buffs that carry through the save files.
You're not burning out bullet wounds with cigars and
right.
Oh, dude, I wish. Like, give Kojima a Resident Evil game, please.
Oh man,
like, that would be the best game ever. Like, imagine Metal Gear Solid 5 with zombies.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they did that.
Metal Gear Survive. You didn't play it?
But give it to Kojima.
But make it good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they made some mistakes with Village. Number one, why is Chris on the box? He's in the game for like 4 seconds. Like, come on. Like, even better, why is he half werewolf on the box?
Even better, yeah.
Like,
my biggest guess for that would just be the fact that no one really knows what Ethan looks like.
Yeah.
Dude, does anybody know what Chris looks like anymore?
Yeah.
I would assume so. How many times do they actually show Ethan, though?
They don't. You don't see his face.
I thought actually in 8 they showed a little bit of him.
He just looks like a podcaster.
So this is a whole Master Chief thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Halo.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm trying to remember. You might see his face at the end, but I honestly can't remember. I honestly don't think you do. I'm pretty sure the only thing you ever see from him is first person and from behind. So you can see
that may be it.
Yeah.
I had thought someone had mentioned that there was like a very, very quick like flash.
Right.
But
I think someone did rip his like model out of the game, and it literally didn't have a face on it, which is hilarious.
That's
nice.
really good.
It's just a camera looking back.
That's right.
It's like that weird glitch you get where it's like inside of people's heads, except there's just no front on it.
Yeah.
But the game is great. Like and it does my favorite thing too, which is again, thank you again, Resident Evil 7 for this. Get an achievement. You start New Game Plus. It says, "Oh, you got this achievement. Have this gun. Have this buff. Have this mod."
Let's go.
And it does the whole store thing as well, where it's like, "Oh, you want an infinite ammo rocket launcher? That'll be 12,000 points, please. Hero, how you get points? Like the Forza Horizon 5 challenges thing.
Yeah.
Or the accolades. It's like that. It's like kill 50 people with this type of gun, this type of gun, this type of gun, this type of gun. And it gives you points for it all. And then it's like yeah, you can spend 12,000 on this rocket launcher. Or if you're feeling really risky, here's a laser sword, wink, for you to use. I don't know. Resident Evil Village is incredible. I will forever adore that series. And even during its bad times, yes, I do have the full 1,000 gamer score on Resident Evil 6. Thank you very much for noticing. I will still play them. And I am just so pleased that they are now in a renaissance of the greatest hits seem to be great again. And make Resident Evil great again. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Village is a quality product. And if you're a fan of the series, you should definitely play it. Yeah. And that is why Resident Evil Village is my number one. Nim, take me to Japan again, please.
My number one is Tales of Arise.
There we go.
All right, so I have talked about my snafu with this game, where my game was pushed back for shipment, so they provided me with the code so that I can have the digital PS4, PS5 version. That was around the time I got a PS5. Great, so I played it on there. Then my game showed up, and I got the PS5 version, even though I ordered the PS4 version. Talked with them. They shipped me the PS4 version and told me to keep the PS5. So now I own both versions physically and digitally.
Nice.
Aside from their great customer service so far for this game, the story picks up where you're playing as a guy who can't feel anything. Yes, he has amnesia. He doesn't feel pain. He doesn't just feel anything. He's got this weird iron mask, makes him look like the cyber ninja from Metal Gear. Just keeping that in there. But as you continue on the story, as you start to get more characters, you start to get the nuances of like all these different characters. There's this side love story that's happening. There's this other possible love story that's happening with like the 3-4 other characters that are with you. You're going into these new areas that just look massive and are great. Then you get the plot twist, and then all of a sudden they started making a Star Ocean game better than the Star Ocean game.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. I'm not going to spoil it past that because there are so many plot twists that they drop as you get towards the end of the game that you honestly just don't know where the hell this game is going. And then you get to the end of it and you're just like, that was a hell of a ride. And it was just really fun. The battle system, they revamped it. There's no MP anymore. It's all based on the diamond system, which I think was in Zestria. Not entirely sure.
I don't remember.
It's basically replacing the old the AP system that they were making in there, where it's like you don't have MP or SP. It's just you have these diamonds, you use an ability, it takes away a diamond, you hit something, you get it back. It just makes the flow of battle a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
They still have the switching that you can do, the ultimates that they've moved in there, where it's like your characters are constantly regenerating their ultimate diamond. So you hit that, 2 characters do like their ultimate skill, and then you fill up another bar, and all of a sudden you're doing mystic arts again. I mean, it's real easy to just walk into a boss fight and walk all over them, depending on the difficulty. On normal, that is not the case all the time because those bosses are difficult. But yeah, it's just, God, I really loved it. I really loved the direction they took it. You're not playing like a bunch of young kids in this one. Like the guy you're playing is like 30 years old, maybe.
Mm.
And there's only one old guy reference in this entire thing.
Nice.
But yeah, I really loved this game, and I really loved where it went, and I really looking forward to see what they do next. They aren't making a direct sequel to it, which is fine, but I want to see how they push it more.
Yeah,
because the Tales games have always been, there's a couple here and there, like all genre or series, but the Tales games have always been like a really good series, like a staple to point to for like, oh, if you want to try out, a JRPG, try out a Tales game.
Yep.
And I think this one just blows the rest of them out of the park.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's my number one.
All right, my number one surprised me, so I need to explain how I make my top 10 list.
Okay. Here we go.
As I play stuff throughout the year, I add it to the list of games I played this year. When I finish a game, I bold it in my list to say like, all right, I have either completed this game or like played enough that I feel confident I could add it to my top 10 list comfortably. I then take all of those bolded games, I randomize them, and I put them in a list. And then I kind of cut the ones that are definitely not going to make it in the list. Those move to honorable mention. So typically, I have them in alphabetical order throughout the year. That's why I randomize them, just so it's not like, here's my list in alphabetical order of these Sims wins. And then at that point I say, okay, well, is this one better than this? And you sort of scoot it around the list. And my number one stayed at number one, and nothing beat it. And
is it The Binding of Isaac?
I was actually going to say that too.
No, gosh, I wish. My number one is Death's Door.
Okay.
And sort of surprising myself until I thought back to it and thought, Death's Door is really a game that kind of encompasses a lot of different little things and genres and stuff that I really, really like, sort of personally. Like, one of the reasons why I like Fez so much is just that sense of discovery and that sense of, man, the next room is going to have something else that's cool. Like, what am I going to find if I poke and prod at the edges of this thing? And Death's Door definitely has that of like, oh, what if I walk around the edge of this? Ooh, okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff back here. Like, oh, what can I use this new? Oh, I got this new thing. Okay. Now I remember, okay, I could probably use it to get through X, Y, and Z, like all of these things. That stuff really does it for me. On top of having this kind of explorable Zelda thing, it's been a long time since we've gotten a Zelda that's like this. And this kind of nails that Zelda exploration top-down isometric thing. I think the fighting is great. It has that real deliberate, like, you have to swing. If you're going to do your combo, you need to make sure that it hits, because the enemy is going to hit you in the middle of your combo, and that's just going to happen. Like, you have to get better at your timing, you have to get better at these different weapons, like, you have to get in there, make some mistakes, and get better. And probably my favorite boss fight of the year is the second to last boss fight, the one in the white room with the chains. Just an outstanding looking boss fight against somebody I didn't think I was going to fight. I'm not going to spoil it. With a fight that was so mechanically interesting, because it's one of the few enemies in the game that is really countering you in a way that you can kind of counter their counter in a really great way. The game looks incredible. The music is fantastic. The post-game secrets you can find where you can flip the entire game on its head. It has like a bajillion things to discover in it. We talked about the chef before, the chef in that boat that is so hilariously stupid and leads to an incredible side quest with that thing just hanging out with you. And then we talked about the umbrella run. My first run through the game, I did 100% of the game because the base game's difficulty is not that high, especially compared to the umbrella run. I think it's challenging enough. Especially like the ice boss is that was a pretty rough time. But sort of going through and getting everything in that game and getting 100% of the stuff in that game and then saying, all right, now I'm going to go do the hard run. I think that made me appreciate the game even more, saying like, here's this other weapon that you get real early on, and yeah, it makes the game pretty hard. Like, you have to be on top of your stuff the entire time. And even if you played the game all the way through like I did to begin with, and you know a lot of the enemy patterns and the puzzles and stuff, you're still going to get punished for not playing nearly perfectly. And I think that made me really love Death's Door. I think so much of Death's Door is just this sum of its parts, and I love each individual part. Like, each individual part is just a thing that really clicks with me, especially the joy of discovery stuff, and having all of that stuff come together and have all of it be really, really good and have such a cool style. You play as a crow, like a death's crow. Like, it's super cool. I think Death's Door is for me, when it sort of bubbled up to number one, I was sort of like, all right, something's got to beat Death's Door in here, and nothing did. In a year of incredible games, Death's Door really clicked with me. I think it's great. My number one, and like we suspected, everybody's number one is wildly different from each other, which is a crow-based hack and slash, new Resident Evil game that happened to be good, and a super JRPG that's made in Unreal Engine, which is a pretty wild spread. Moon, before we go, why don't you hit us with some of the games you missed here?
Okay. I'm not even going to say anything about these.
Yeah.
Except for one. I have to mention one. Hitman 3 Loop Hero, It Takes Two, Disco Elysium, The Final Cut, Binding of Isaac, Repentance, Oddworld, Soulstorm, Returnal, Subnautica Below Zero, Biomutant, Mass Effect Legendary Edition, Chicory, A Colorful Tale, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Acting Verge 2, Psychonauts 2, WarioWare Get It Together, Alan Wake Remastered, BPM Boards Per Minute, Halo Infinite, The Gunk, Riders Republic, and The Fast and the Furious, Spy Racers Rise of Shifter, because I don't know what that game is, but it says Fast and Furious, so now I need to play it.
Yeah, it's the Netflix cartoon game, which is...
I figured.
Yeah.
So, as you probably figured, a lot of that was based on either time or platform.
Nimp, what's in your cool games you didn't play this year?
Mine is The Medium, which I have started, just haven't gotten back to yet.
Yep.
Bravely Default 2, haven't even started it.
Yep.
Forgotten City, again, started it, need to get back to it.
Right.
Near Replicant version 1.22474487139 ...
Yep.
Didn't even attempt to get to this one because I knew it wasn't going to be until next year.
Yep.
Biomutant.
Oh, yeah.
Metroid Dread.
Yep.
And the shocker for me this year, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I have a copy of Guardians of the Galaxy I got for real cheap because everybody says, yo, this game is really good. And then I remember, right, the team that made Tomb Raider made it. I should probably play it.
Ah, crap.
Yep, it's on super sale like every other week, so you can scoop it up for pretty cheap.
Yakuza's leaving Game Pass soon, like at the end of this month.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. My ones that we haven't talked about, Get in the Car Loser. I didn't play Tales of Rise, Deathloop, The Great Ace Attorney, Metroid Dread, Eastward, Kena Bridge of Spirits, which I really regret not finding the time for, Inscription, which I just saw someone, an outlet made their game of the year, which is wild. Lost in Random, that's that dice-based third-person platforming game. Opus, Echo of Star Song. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. That's probably going to be a sleeper hit of 2022 once people get around to it. I never finished Fist, Forge, and Shadow Torch, The Artful Escape, and I'm like halfway through Life is Strange True Colors, which I'm really bummed I didn't finish in time for this year. But, like, I played 30 games this year, and I still have a list of 20 incredible games that I haven't gotten the time to play. So, like, 2021 was just an incredible year for games. As we talked about at the beginning of the show, next week, since we're still on vacation, we're going to have our 2022 predictions episode. Talk about all the predictions we made for this year, last year. We will crown the most correctest of 2021, and we'll kind of look forward to what we think is going to happen in 2022. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.